democracy now. That something's happening. I mean, there's so much that I want to talk about, but I feel a little foolish like those old people during the 60s who used to try to comment on the student movement, because so forgive me or stay with me, and I just wanted to share with you some of the things that Occupy has made me think about. I told a friend that I thought if I talked today I would talk about time, space, and revolution, and she said, well, that's modest. And then I got a note from another friend last night who said she was writing a paper on feminism, the body, and political performance. So I thought I should talk about that too. So I think I'm going to try to talk about all those things very quickly. But the first thing I want to say is that there is an exhilaration. I feel it here, and you certainly feel it in Zuccotti Park. And why is that? Social scientists don't have much to contribute to the study of social movements. They're always as surprised by them as our politicians and the mainstream media. But maybe we have one notion that I think could work, which is the hidden transcripts of resistance. All right? And the notion of the hidden transcripts of resistance is that while things seem to be going smoothly for power, while things keep seeming to be moving along, out of sight and hidden away, people are elaborating responses to the kinds of insults that we are all required to take daily. And there comes a moment, and nobody knows when or how, when those hidden transcripts of resistance, all the classes you've taken, all the projects you've done that have seemed so idealistic, so utopian, they have their moment, they burst forth, and they spread like a fever, as they said about the sit-ins during the civil rights movement. I think today we could talk about they go viral. And occupation has clearly gone viral, and I think at last count there were 1,600 occupations right now. There is not a small town. There is not a college or university. There is not a public meeting that is not, in which the 1% are proclaiming that is not being occupied. So the hidden transcripts of resistance, which we have nurtured in places like this, are bursting forward, and I think that at least for quite a while, they have the stage, and we're going to make sure that they keep it for a while. All right, I wanted to talk about space, and the specific space. I think we've all been trying to figure out how important is that place, Zuccotti Park. And the first thing that seems very, which I understand from being there, is the slave name, and we should only refer to it as Liberty Plaza, and which is very interesting because if you think about Massachusetts, which is one of the old indigenous names, Massachusetts means the clam bake place. All right, so that is a designation, a naming of space that has to do with the activities that happen there. Like Liberty Plaza has to do with the activities that have been happening there, versus the other designations of space that we're much more used to. John Harvard Square, that is to say places that have been occupied by private property, Zuccotti Park. So I think it's very important, number one, that public space has been remade public. And that's, I think, really significant, and clearly power thinks that these occupied spaces are important. And there's been a coordinated effort to kick people out of them. So I think that we have to defend our territory. The latest thing that I heard is happening, I think that the people in Zuccotti Park, even though they've been, Liberty Plaza, old habits die hard. The people in Liberty Plaza have been saying, you can take us out of liberty, but you can't take liberty out of us. At the same time, they recognize that they have to keep retaking the park for general assemblies. And I want to talk very briefly about how strange and beautiful and important and marvelous this face-to-face practice of democracy has been. It's so interesting that they will allow you to broadcast virtually, right? But not allow you to have a microphone to talk to one another in a space like this, which has provoked in turn the inventiveness of the people and the human mic. Now the notion of mic check, sends terror into the hearts of the powerful, as it did when they're trying to deliver a speech, as was Michelle Bachmann, or the CEO, or let alone, even the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield got mic checked. So there's something to me that's so ironic and fabulous about reappropriating a technology and transforming it into something human, literally human. So I think that space is really important, and what I heard today is that churches and synagogues all over New York have opened their doors to protesters, so they have... Another aspect of this moment that I have found truly pleasurable is the spectacle of disintegration of the mainstream media. Do you know that the first reporter that, I'm sorry, I still do things like read the New York Times. It's old, that's another. The first reporter they sent to Liberty Plaza was their entertainment reporter. And it is thrilling. You should just, Google New York Times Occupy as they scramble. And of course, you know what they're desperate to find? Leaders and spokespeople. That's all they want. And the other thing they're really interested, do you know the New York Times really has a deep concern for diversity, and they're very upset that Liberty Plaza hasn't been as diverse as, I'm sure the staff of the New York Times must be very diverse. So it's really fun to watch them. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what it is. And so that gives me a certain amount of pleasure. Another thing that I read quite recently, and this is about feminism, the body, and political performance, is a lot of people have been talking about the differences between this politics and the 60s. But there are differences between this politics and the anti-globalization movement, the Battle of Seattle, which was described as we used to move in packs of wolves led by an alpha male. Right, so that image of storming Starbucks, right? And now if an alpha male shows up on Liberty Plaza, he's booted. It is a very different kind of horizontal, what Angela Davis called the other day, a new community of resistance that is being performed in which people are coming to know one another and one another's issues. And that brings me to the last, so that was feminism and the body, political performances. And just so I don't take up too much of your time, I do want to speak about time and policing. And I think that, I'm totally, and I think we have to stay with the possibilities of Occupy Wall Street at the same moment that we realize, I think as the brother said, what kind of policing is coming down upon it and that we can anticipate seeing. Time. The other thing about the mainstream, the politicians and the media, is they want it to be over. Okay, you made your point, you changed the conversation, now go home and be done with it. Right? I can't tell you, when is it going to end? Enough already, certainly by the holidays, right? And I kept thinking of what Mao said when he was asked what he thought of the French Revolution and its impact. And he said, it's too early to tell. So I think that revolution is slow. And it's not true. I think it's very, very important that the movement has no demands. That doesn't mean that we don't know what we want. But what we know there's no quick fix. And that what we want can't be solved by the 2012 elections or in front or behind Obama's jobs bill. Watch the Democratic Party love protest. They are just all over it, waiting to get you to go knock on doors again for Obama. So we need our time. We're making another world, and that takes a while. And finally, I want to speak about the policing. And I think I've been trying to do a little bit of research. Oh, another very important part about no demands, and you know, what's his name, Christoph in the New York Times? Nicholas Christoph, the second week of September, he already had it down. There were 7 demands, he listed them. You know, criminal thought. I mean, sorry, where do they get off defining them? And even Michael Moore, who I sort of love and adore, he thinks that we should have a state-by-state constitutional amendment campaign against corporate personhood. Not a bad idea, but excuse me, if you live in Harlem right now, as Cornel West amplified, stop and frisk is your issue. The Rockefeller drug laws are your issue. Mass incarceration is your issue. If you're a woman, the attack on Planned Parenthood right now is your issue. And we do not want our needs and our demands, which we're only beginning to discover, to be stopped and confined and pushed into one place. So I think that has been the absolute genius and newness of the movement. And now about policing. I think the first important thing was the arrest on the Brooklyn Bridge. 700 people were lured into an arrest because the commissioner in New York is well known to be data-driven. That was a data-gathering operation. They wanted to know who was protesting, which boroughs they were from, what socioeconomic strata, what occupations, all right? And I think that we have to talk now about the military-industrial carceral complex. That is to say that as we are somewhat withdrawing from our overseas counterinsurgency, do you think those companies that have been fueling counterinsurgencies abroad are going to stop business? No, they're entering directly into domestic urban police departments. You know, my home city of Cambridge, the police department was offered a free trip to Israel to learn how to control terrorism. Seriously, the move between foreign and domestic, seeing the urban theater as a counterinsurgency theater, I think is just enormously important. The other dimension of the policing, which has been very striking to me, is the kind of biosecurity is the only way sort of I know how to think about it. You know, they act like they're the hygiene police, right? That what they're really about is sanitation. And the latest moment in that has been, you know, the confiscation of the People's Library. They say they can't.
Everyone knows you don't screw around with librarians. They put you in order. That's what they do. They put things in order.
Well, they're not releasing the thousands of confiscated books because they have found needles, apparently, between the pages of the books. This is very consistent with the characterization of protesters as drug addicts and in somehow as a kind of blight on our city that needs to be cleaned up in cities that have already been sanitized if you live in New York. I mean, go to Disneylandia, which used to be 42nd Street. So I don't know. I'm trying to, I mean, I don't have, but I really think we have to watch the rhetoric and the tactics of policing, and we have to outsmart them. Already, the protesters who were arrested on Monday night have been holding general assemblies in jail. And turning the rhetoric of power and the police against it, they've been complaining about the hygiene conditions. So I think, and they've also said, could the police haven't charged them with anything, could they please figure out what their demands are and what they want? No one will take them seriously. So I thought, I'm sorry, I shouldn't end on the policing note, but I think that this is when politics becomes exciting, because we don't know what's happening, and there's just an enormous amount of creativity and strategy, and whoever would have thought that a motley crew of idealists and vegetarians could have begun to change the world.